is on.
You're prepared.
All right. Good evening. I call the special meeting of the Governing Board to order. It's 6 p.m. Mr. Vice President Sharkey, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll have a roll call on who's in attendance. Dr. Patinsky, will you start and we'll come around?
Here,
And say your name.
Dr. Matthew Patinsky.
Thank you.
Karen Warner. Amy Carney.
Mike Sharkey.
And Donna Lewis, so we are all here and we have a quorum. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda or any changes that, would anyone like to make to it? I'll start with any changes.
I'd like to move to amend the agenda by moving item 5J, approval of governing board work retreat, to information discussion item 4C, under policy BE and BEDD.
So you want to move an action item to discussion?
Correct.
Okay, we need a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on your thinking?
Just according to policy BE and BEDD, we don't need to approve a special meeting as it's already been approved and is covered under policy.
Okay. Other thoughts? And is that, can I get a verification on that, Mr. Bazan? Bazan?
Well, that is the practice. I am looking at the policy now. That has been the practice, that no meeting needs to be approved. But that doesn't mean that it can't be approved by a vote.
If we're just being in discussion on it, I've not done that in the past personally, so I found it unusual to make it an action item. The only reason I was swayed to think it might be an action item, since it came up, was that it was a calendar change per se. Is that, and you're shaking your head no, and I'm seeing another no. Any other ideas? Dr. Patinsky, Mr. Sharkey, Ms. Werner? Support, okay. All right. Any, anything you want to add, Dr.
So
Menzel?
the reason it's an action item is that there had been a request for discussion about the potential of having a board retreat. I haven't made an assumption that the board would or would not want to have a retreat, so did not proceed to schedule one, but did plan for the potential for this conversation. And should the board want to choose a date, it is properly agendized here so that an action item can be taken to identify a date and confirm that we're going to have a retreat, and identify what the elements of the agenda might be, so that there's no question about whether or not open meeting law was complied with in having this conversation.
Is there an issue with leaving it in both places as a possibility? So if we don't need it for action, I'm overthinking it probably.
I'd say technically, if you had two agenda items, you'd be amending the agenda, but I mean, you do have the ability to move the item around, and it is set for action now, so I'd say it's a small risk.
Okay.
May I ask a question? So is the spirit of it less about whether we should or shouldn't have a retreat, and just more that we don't procedurally need to actually vote on it, whichever way we decide?
Yeah, and I think we've all agreed we want to have a retreat, right? It's procedurally, we don't need to do that as an action item because it's covered under policy BE and BEDD.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
I'm comfortable with the assumption in moving it to a discussion and not necessarily an action personally, so I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion to move agenda 5J to become 4C, say aye.
aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes 5-0. All right, any other changes to the agenda? Okay, I need an approval to approve the agenda as amended.
Did you make a motion?
No, I said I need one, I can do it. I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, passes 5-0. All right, let's go ahead and go to Dr. Menzel's superintendent's comments.
Well, thank you, President Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, members of the governing board. We're still in January, which means it's still a Governing Board Appreciation Month, and our appreciation hasn't lessened since the last time we talked. But the fact that we're meeting again here tonight gives us an opportunity to continue doing the work that's important for Scottsdale Unified School District. There are no shortage of really great things that are happening, so I'm only going to highlight a few things. But last week, I had the honor of participating in the Anasazi Blue Zone's approval ribbon-cutting celebration. One of the things when you have these kinds of ceremonies at elementary schools is the excitement on the students' faces when we get to have that celebration, and so that was just a real joy. Then also last week, Chaparral hosted the Phoenix Holocaust Association Day of Remembrance event, where we had the author of We Were the Lucky Ones, Georgia Hunter, as the guest speaker, and she was interviewed. The conversation was facilitated by Busy Phillips, who is an award-winning actress and also a Chaparral alum. And it was an honor for me to be able to present her with a SUSD legacy pin at the end of the presentation. More than 500 people were in attendance to hear the powerful and important story that's shared in that book. And if you haven't read the book, there's also a Hulu series, and you can watch it that way. On Saturday, we had our middle school sports festival, the third and final one of the year, where girls basketball, boys flag football, and cross country had an opportunity for the festival. I want to thank Nathan Slater, Barb, James, the coaches, volunteers, and others who helped put that together. It was truly a fantastic event, and there's a lot that goes into making it happen, and it went off essentially without a hitch. Last night, we partnered with Scottsdale Blue Zones and our Student Services Department to offer an Escape the Vape training session. We invited parents and students, and that training was held at the Scottsdale Spirit of the West Museum. Small crowd, but people who are committed to addressing the vaping challenge, so that was a positive partnership report. And the last thing is that we will have many entrants in the 71st edition of the Parada del Sol on Saturday morning. We're looking forward to seeing many governing board members there, many SUSD floats, marching bands, and I have an opportunity for the first time since I've been here to ride a horse in the parade. I've been begging for 5 years, so it will be a lot of fun. So looking forward to seeing many people out there, and with that, I'll conclude my update.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 4A. Here we're going to hear an update from our various professional associations, and do we want to call them all up together? All right, let's have our leaders of the Scottsdale Administrators Association, the Scottsdale Education Association, Scottsdale Support Professional Association, and the Scottsdale District Administrators Association come on up, and we look forward to hearing your updates. Board members, we can ask questions for clarification. We just need to be mindful that if we go into what might become a topic, we'll want to agendize that for the future.
Good evening, Governing Board President Dr. Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, members of the School Governing Board, Dr. Menzel, and Ms. Wagner. I am Dr. Janelle Dansky. I'm the principal at Arcadia High School, president-elect of the SAA, and this is my colleague, Shelley Hammond, president of SAA. In celebration of National School Board Recognition Month, I'm honored to acknowledge your vital role in shaping our district's future. Serving on the board is a significant responsibility, overseeing policies, budgets, and strategic decisions that affect our students and staff. Your leadership fosters an environment where learning flourishes and prepares our children. I want to highlight the importance of principals and assistant principals in our education system here in SUSD. Principals establish the school culture, inspiring teachers and guiding students while creating a supportive environment for everyone. Assistant principals play a crucial role as operational managers and instructional leaders, working alongside principals to implement transformative practices that contribute to our district schools. Research shows that strong school leadership significantly impacts student achievement, second only to classroom instruction. Effective leaders create conditions for teaching and learning, manage resources wisely, mediate conflicts, and engage families with empathy. Despite their essential contributions, the role of school leaders is sometimes undervalued in discussions about education improvement.
Investing in school leadership means investing in every student, teacher, and classroom, and without well-supported principals and assistant principals, even the best initiatives can struggle to succeed. As you deliberate on the priorities for our district in your upcoming terms, I urge you to consider, number one, ensuring that our school leaders have access to ongoing high-quality professional development. The challenges of today's educational landscape require leaders who are not only equipped to handle the present, but are also prepared to innovate for the future. Number two, to recognize the immense scope of the responsibilities that principals and assistant principals carry as we identify what is truly important for us to focus on in order to meet our district WIGs. And finally, a variety of measures to attract and retain the best leaders. When there is principal turnover, the progress made towards implementing change in a school can stall during the transition. We really look forward to partnering with the board, fellow leadership, teachers, and staff in ensuring excellence for all of our students. Thank you very much.
Good evening, President Dr. Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, Governing Board members, Superintendent Dr. Menzel, Mrs. Wagner, and guests. It is my honor to give you an update on the Scottsdale Education Association and the certified staff of our district. SEA has been working on increasing our visibility across the district and listening to general members for ideas that will impact the day-to-day work of the district for students and for all students and staff. With this as our focus, we have been visiting each SUSD site to talk to all certified staff. We are pleased to report that the district administration has been working with us to help create solutions to various issues throughout the year. Throughout our work, we have noticed some consistent concerns around rising employee costs of insurance, the balancing of staffing, and effective management of student behavior, and thought that it best to bring this to you as the board as you make decisions on the prioritization of years moving forward for the district. On insurance, both SUSD and SEA have an interest in retaining and attracting highly qualified staff. The biggest issue on this front is the rising cost of insurance. Currently, rising healthcare premiums are forcing some staff to pay as much as $22,000 in premium before even seeking medical care. We are uniquely hit by rising insurance costs due to the higher than average experience of our trusted certified staff. With experience, healthcare becomes more necessary for both proactive and basic care. As a district striving to elevate excellence, we must do all we can to mitigate rising costs of insurance for all employees. We support SUSD negotiations of healthcare costs, continued cost savings education for employees, and continued exploration for more cost-effective measures for the district as a whole. In support of these efforts, we have completed a petition in support of our healthcare plan negotiations, where 82% of all certified staff have signed supporting 3 priorities: decreasing employee costs of insurance, ensuring there are affordable plans for each category of plan, including single, spouse, children, and family plans, and maintaining the quality of care while addressing the first 2 priorities. The signatures of over 1,100 of our certified staff members on this petition demonstrates that these priorities are shared widely and deeply by our certified community. This further demonstrates the importance and urgency that SUSD and SEA leadership have put on improving employee insurance options. Staffing issues. So as an association, we are aware that staffing and salary increases are directly related, and that this is a delicate balance between having the staff we need to elevate excellence on every campus and being able to provide the salary increases needed for our educators to keep up with the rising cost of living in the East Valley. As staffing ratios have been assigned for each site throughout SUSD, they have been assigned based on the guidelines for each employment agreement. While we support currently negotiated ratios, we urge that balanced scheduling is imperative. In a recent survey of certified staff, 34% reported that their caseloads are not manageable, and 57% responded that this negatively impacts their effectiveness. Furthermore, we must balance the out-of-class workload for employees. If the focus is on educational advancement and elevating excellence, we must allow our highly qualified educators the time needed to plan to provide feedback and for the higher number of students in their care. And then we also believe that the more effective management of student behavior is needed at many of our campuses. SUSD is a diverse district with many sites, and each of our sites has reached different levels of effectiveness with our MTSS-B program. This issue is weighed heavily on the minds and hearts of our certified educators. Many of our educators have worked in SUSD for decades, and they remember a time when their word was trusted and behaviors changed upon correction. That simply is not the case for much of our community in current times. When certified staff seek support for dealing with egregious student behaviors in the classroom, they're often told to build better relationships or to assume best intentions or to find their why. Our collective why has always been what is best for the students entrusted to our care. We care for all students and strive to build connections with them on a daily basis. We would also like the same assumption of best intentions that we're told to afford to others. Many of these behaviors have weighed down classrooms and prevented further academic growth. The weight of management of student behavior must be met with shared burden and accountability. Our certified staff needs support, not simply training, more training. We must collectively find a way to better support our educators at all levels to elevate excellence in SUSD. Thank you for your time and continued cooperation. We appreciate you and look forward to collaboratively working together to take on these challenges.
Good evening, Board President Dr. Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, members of the board, Dr. Menzel, Ms. Wagner, colleagues, and guests. I am Krista Dimitrilius, the president of the Scottsdale Support Professionals Association. I am always grateful for the opportunity to speak before you on behalf of our classified staff. As we continue our focus on student success and building a stronger community, I am honored to collaborate with not only our support professionals, but our certified faculty and district and site administrators. Each member of our team plays a crucial role in ensuring that student learning happens in a safe and supportive environment. The interspace negotiations are progressing effectively. Our discussions have encompassed various options related to general leave, professional development, and compensation. Additionally, we are discussing the possibility of having meetings with classified staff. I firmly believe when we listen to and support one another, we create the foundation for a positive and productive workplace. Our students' success depends on all of us working together, and by acknowledging the importance of every role, we can continue to foster a culture of collaboration and respect. To end, I want to thank each member of our classified staff for the invaluable work you do each and every day. You are key players in the success of SUSD, and your efforts make a significant impact on our students and our community. Thank you.
Good evening, Board President Dr. Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Menzel, Mrs. Wagner, and honored guests. I'm Sean Crozier, and I'm the president of the Scottsdale District Administrators Association. Our association represents a diverse group of district administrators and support-exempt employees who lead and work, often behind the scenes, to support SUSD's educational mission. Our members include directors, coordinators, supervisors, managers, and specialists serving across essential departments such as facilities, finance, human resources, security, educational services, and student services, CTE, food services, warehouse, and IT. Through the interest-based negotiations process, we ensure constructive dialogue that benefits our entire educational community. This inaugural year for our association has been marked with significant milestones, including the creation and board adoption of the District Administrator Employee Agreement. This framework established clear guidelines and collaboration and mutual understanding within our district. We're grateful for the collaborative spirit that made this agreement possible and look forward to building upon this foundation. As we continue our work alongside the other associations through the IBN process, we remain focused on supporting SUSD's vision, mission, and values. We began this year as an association with goals built around the values of representation, responsibility, sustainability, and fairness. Goals and values we believe strongly align with our district vision, mission, and values. We are proud of the significant collaboration and progress we have made thus far and look forward to continuing our progress this spring. Looking ahead, we're committed to working constructively with all stakeholders to support SUSD's vision, mission, and values and advance SUSD's strategic plan and wildly important goals. Our membership understands that their role is to provide leadership and foundational support that enables our schools, teachers, and students to thrive. We work diligently to elevate excellence, ensuring that the district operations run smoothly, resources are managed efficiently, and support services are delivered promptly to our schools. As an association, we look forward to continuing to support district administrators in serving in that role. Thank you for your time and continued support of our district mission, and thank you again for your service on this school board.
Thank you, Mr. Crozier. Thank you, each of you. The leadership that you each provide to your respective organizations is above and beyond the call of duty. It's outside of your daily responsibilities, and as volunteer community leaders, we really appreciate and understand what it takes to lead the group of people that you represent. So thank you. Krista, our thoughts and prayers are with you. At this time, are there any clarifications or questions that the board has about the wonderful way you laid out for the year, what you'll be working on?
I have a comment.
Ms. Werner?
So Dr. Dansky and Mrs. Humman, I really appreciate you sharing today. I let Dr. Menzel know that I will not support eliminating assistant principals at any of our sites or reducing their time to .5. They are vital to our sites and the support for our principals. With the behavior issues that we are seeing, I have been told the amount of time and effort that it takes from the leadership. And so I stand by that. I stood by this last year and I'll stand by it again. I will not support it. So, and thank you again for sharing. I appreciate it. And Mr. Buckley, thank you for being so transparent and authentic. I'm very, very grateful and will be reaching out to you.
Any other comments or clarifying questions? All right, thank you guys so much. We'll look forward to working with you throughout the year. All right, we'll move on to 4B, fiscal year 2025-2026, early projections for maintenance and operations.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Lewis, Vice President Sharkey, members of the board, and Dr. Menzel and guests tonight. We are taking a very high-level first look at our early projections for the M&O budget for next school year. Maybe. There we go. So we start off by taking a look at our strategic goals and commitments, and this is what we look at when we're trying to figure out what decisions do we have to make, what are the priorities for us as we develop the budget. The first one being Goal 3, attract, hire, develop, support, and retain highly qualified, passionate, and talented professionals. We work through that through the IBN process. We work through knowing that salary increases are highly important to our staff, and we know the medical costs are highly important, and looking at ways to address those. And then Goal 5, generate and utilize resources to maximize educational opportunities in order to ensure organizational health. Again, as we look at the budget, we are looking at how are the resources being used, can things that we've been doing, if they're not working, can we get rid of them, and how can we use those dollars to maximize what we need to do. As we go into the M&O budget, there's a couple assumptions that we make. Average daily membership, or ADM, is what drives our funding. We look at that, and it's hard because M&O is funded on current year funding, so we're making early assumptions that we don't really know what ADM will be until we get later on into the school year. We take a look at historically what has happened. Historically, we've looked at averages, and based on that, it's an ADM reduction of 373. However, there are weights that are associated with Group A weights for all students, and then Group A for special needs, free and reduced, gifted, some other areas. So with those weights, right now we're estimating that to be 499. Again, this is really early. We don't even have the 100th day. We just had our 100th day last Monday. So as we're still working through what those numbers look like, making sure that everything has been uploaded and is correctly accounted for in there, we'll continue to look at where does that look like and do we need to adjust these numbers. But that's where we're going off of at this time. We anticipate a base level or an amount per student to increase by 2%. That would put us at $5,113.26. That should be what is happening because inflation is above 2%. The voters have approved a maintenance and operations override of 15%. Next year will be year 2 of that approved override, so that's 15% of our RCL, and we'll look at that in just a minute when we look at the budget. And then teacher experience index has been flat. It changes a little bit. It could change. Districts have until March to make any adjustments, but what that basically is based off of is you send the state what is the experience level of all of your teachers. They look at that statewide, and if your district is above a state average, depending on how much more above that average it is, you receive additional funding. Like I said, we have until March 1st to define those numbers and make sure that there's no changes to be made, but right now it should be flat at 1.02. This takes a look at how you put the budget together. And it's kind of like doing tax forms where you follow one step and it takes you to the next. There's a couple things we don't know. And so there's 2 proposals or options there within it. We don't know what's going to happen with Prop 123. which ends the end of this fiscal year. I know it's a topic that's being discussed around the state and at the Capitol. We just don't know at this time what that looks like, and if so, will there be funding for that, or will that funding completely go away? So the first column looks at what do we know for the anticipated revised, and again, this is based off of what we knew back in December, so this could change a little bit, will change a little bit as we get more definitive numbers once we have the 100th day information and everything is gathered. With that, we've got what happens if we don't receive 123 monies and what happens if we do receive Prop 123 monies. So total weighted student count stays the same in any case. It's a reduction of 499. The base level increase stays the same either way. Teacher experience stays the way. We get additional funding for our audit, so that's a little bit more for next year. And then the transportation amount we get stays the same. All those together make up our revenue control limit. And that revenue control limit is what decides our overrides. So for M&O, it's 15% of that revenue control limit. It's actually because our revenue control limit is going down a little bit as ADM goes down, or weights go down, that override amount we are projecting will go down slightly. DSEG stays the same. The biggest change really has to do with our budget balance carry forward. We had hoped to carry forward $14 million into this year. We were obviously short of that. So that makes an impact between decisions that were made in the past and the fact that we're not overspending our budgets, but things just cost more. People are spending more of the budgets they're allocated. So two parts lead to that reduction of about $3 million. One part is the governing board approved doing a 2% raise, which is a percentage more than what we had anticipated originally. That was going to come out of the carry forward, as that brings the carry forward down and continues to bring that down. That is about 1.4 of that. Again, carry forward into this year was lower than what we anticipated, and we know we're filling jobs. That's good, but that impacts our carry forward, and everything just costs more. So what I really want to highlight here is that we are still carrying over money. We don't have a budget issue like we see happening in other places. We are still carrying over money. We're just projecting that it's not going to be as much as we have in the past. But that does bring down what our total M&O budget will be. Water savings, that's for things that we do. Energy savings, that's for leases that we have. We're paying the principal and interest, so that goes down a little bit every single year. And then the big unknown is, again, Prop 123. This year is $1.3 million, almost 1.4. Depends on whether or not we receive those dollars or not moving forward. So because of that, because we have that unknown, starting out the year, and because we're bringing that budget balance carry forward, that's somewhere between a 2.8 and a 4.2 deficit or deduction in what we're going to have for next year, which means we have to then start looking at how do we bring down our expenses. The revenue we get goes down, the expenses have got to go down, or you've got an even bigger problem. We have a team that is, I'm going to go back to that slide. We have a team that's been looking at that throughout the entire year. It's made up of senior level leadership of myself, Dr. Cruz, Ms. Mitchell, Dr. Sakos, Ms. Cerna. We've been looking at that. We're looking at what do we do, because that doesn't even address, we want to be able to do salary increases. We want to be able to address the medical costs and working through that and lowering them. So we, I think, are pretty close to having the bulk of that difference, at least for the $2.8 million if we do receive Prop 123. We're pretty close to having that worked out as we look at ratios, as we look at some other cost-saving measures across the district, but we'll continue to work on that. One of the things that then comes to mind is, well, what do we do about salary increases? What do we do about insurance? And what we're really looking at that is, as many districts across the state have had to do, is do we need to look at moving state DAW, District Additional Assistance, or capital funds to M&O to be able to provide the dollars that would be necessary to do some kind of salary adjustment and address medical insurance. We had a self-insurance trust board meeting last week, and the self-insurance trust board did allocate $2 million towards insurance for next year. That will help, but it doesn't bridge the full gap, and we don't know yet what the increase, we get a yearly increase on medical expenses, what that will look like. But we are continuing to tackle that issue as well. But to be able to tackle some of those issues, we are probably going to land in the needing to move funds from district additional assistance over to M&O. This just looks at what have we been doing, what is the calendar for what we'll continue to do. We've been meeting with interest-based negotiations. We have the single ones that happen where groups on their own are meeting, but we've done a few all-group interest-based negotiations, looking at the budget, reviewing the budget. We have some more coming up in February where we'll be looking at, okay, if we do move the DAW, what does that look like? What could we offer, and how could we address salaries and medical with that? I will be back here up at the podium again in February talking about M&O and capital projections and going over that. We'll have some new numbers to look at and see where that's at. We'll also at that time, we should have what's the plan to at least deal with the deficit that we need to look at and bringing those expenses down so that we don't continue to take big chunks away from our budget carry forward, as it isn't also important to have that budget carry forward because things come up that you maybe aren't anticipating. So we do want to make sure we have that moving forward. So we'll have that, more of a detail of that when we come back in February. And then March is where we do the salary schedule so that we can move forward with issuing contracts. And then, of course, in June, we will have the proposed and public hearing. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
Dr. Potensky?
Thank you for the presentation. So if I understand it, there's sort of two assumptions that you have to make when it comes to the student population. One is, and I just want to use the right terms, one is the ADM, and then the other is kind of a guesstimate, the weights, which is kind of the attributes of the ADM that then ultimately translate the ADM into the 499 count.
So the ADM, we have to make an educated guess on where that is. But the amount that we get per weight stays the same and should not have much of a change, if any change, shouldn't have a change. So once we can estimate where we think ADM is at, then we plug that in to get the total. So it says, okay, there's so many kids in K-8, that's this weight, that totals a weighted count of.
So that distribution isn't difficult to forecast?
No, it's really what is the ADM.
That's- Okay.
The ADM is the most difficult part.
And at this same point in prior budget cycles, do we tend to get it just right? Do we tend to underestimate, overestimate? I know it's an art and a science.
It is. I would say it's difficult. Like right now, we know that what we estimated for the budget for this year, the ADM is more of a reduction than what we thought. But we also know that, like I said, we just had the 100th day last week. So we're still trying to guess that. It's never been spot on. I don't think it will ever be spot on. If a school district has that figured out, by all means, please share. It's a balancing act. So if you're a little bit under, then that means you're going to be reducing your budget down some. Or if you're estimating an ADM number and you've estimated high and you don't really meet that number, then you're reducing your budget. If you estimate it and you go too conservative, then you haven't given reasons that you could possibly give because now you've got more money coming in than what you thought. So there's a little bit of a balancing act, and I don't know, I think if you ask different CFOs, they'd tell you go under or they'd tell you to go over. I think it depends on who you'd ask. You want to get it as close as possible because that also impacts tax rates and your cash flow and all of those things. We're pretty close, I think. I know I shared, you know, with this one, we're about 100 and, well, right now with what we know, we're about 140 off, 150 off. But we know, we strongly believe we've undercounted free and reduced and gifted. So it's not a great answer. We try to get as close as possible, but it's never gonna be spot on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Sharkey?
Thanks very much for that. Last week, we were shared the Arizona Auditor General's website with the risk analysis. There's about 10 different ratios on there, and it does a very good job of saying if you're in the red or okay. Given some of the things you've talked about, moving the DAW money or change to the carry forward, do you have any indication if any changes will put us in the red with any of those metrics for the Arizona Auditor General site?
That is a great question. There's two things can impact that. One, we know, well, a couple. We know our ADM is going down. If you're making big shift, if your ADM makes a significant decrease, that's definitely gonna red flag it. We've been around the 2%, so that's been okay. The carry forward, you know, you don't wanna have millions on the books that you're not spending. Having more carry forward can help when you're doing, when you're getting your ratings for bonds and whatnot. But a lot of districts we are seeing are that carry forward is chipping away because ESSER's gone away. We don't have that grant funding that are there. Everybody is, or a lot of people are seeing reductions in ADM. If you took that carry forward down too much, then yes, I think that would definitely start to raise red flags. I mean, we've been chipping at it away a little bit slowlier, and this is the biggest like going down by 3 million is the most we've gone down in a while. I don't think that's enough to, I mean, there's still, even with that, we still have 10 million carry forward. We're still within like a 6% carry forward range. So I don't foresee that as sparking as a red flag, but it is something to consider. Moving the DAW, again, it's something a lot of districts do. I think the bigger thing would be if you start to see all of those changes happening at once and they're pretty significant, then eventually that could, but I don't think we're in the spot where that would be a red flag.
And so, you know, my point in given Isaac Elementary and what happened there, right? Having something where we trip a metric to red obviously is literally a red flag with that. So just want to make sure that as you and we talk about options, I'm assuming we can calculate ahead of time, hey, that will put this below the measure, and therefore if someone goes to the auditor's site, they'll see us now in red. So I wanted to make sure we know that ahead of time where we can make suggestions, but hey, if we do that, know that the visibility has just been increased. So not looking for specifics now, I just think as we make these decisions, is that a sanity check we do?
Yes, that is a sanity check we should have. I would also point out that it's not one thing that's gonna get you on a red. Like you could have something pop up as red. That's not gonna get you flagged. Like it's when you have multiple.
Just being overly cautious, given, yeah, 100%.
And I totally agree with that. That's why we want to be super transparent with what the budget looks like and the fact that we are bringing it down. Is that it's something we have to be mindful of? We still have carry forward, so that's good, but we do need to be mindful of it. And we do have within our board regulations, policy or regulation that says carry forward needs to be between 6 and 8. And we're still staying within that carry forward policy.
Thanks.
Ms. Warner? Ms. Carney?
Thank you, President Lewis. I know you're coming back to us in February about this, but high level on the M&O override dollars, what are we currently budgeting for with our M&O override money?
So roughly 86% of it is salaries and benefits. The bulk of that is, of course, certified teachers in the classroom. The next area would be classified, and then admin. Sorry, I don't know the exact percentages off the top of my head, but those are the areas. The bulk of our budget is salaries and benefits. About 5% is utilities. So when you're looking at, we've got to cut some areas. Unfortunately, most often it falls within people and salaries and benefits. Because utilities are what utilities are. We can't control when APS or SRP says we're gonna do a rate hike. We can cut back on electricity some, but it's not gonna make a huge dent or watering, but, so it really comes down to salaries and benefits. So unfortunately, when we're looking at how do we cut expenses, it falls within people. the bulk of the people within salaries and benefits, like I said, are certified, classified, and then admin. We've charged every department to look at what can you do, how can we reduce cost? As people leave and vacancies appear, we take a dive into, okay, do we have to fill that position? Can we rearrange some job duties to do that? We took a look at, I think, over the last 2 years, was it from last year and looking at this year, like, what is it, 21 positions outside of classrooms within different departments. But we keep looking. It is hard. You still have to have folks in payroll, and we still want people in finance to make sure we don't get into some situations, and we need people to do the facilities. So some of those things, even though our enrollment may go down, we still have the same amount of land to mow grass and keep things going. So.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Did you ask about the M&O override
Yes.
portion of the
Oh,
budget?
you asked for the override portion?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I meant, the override portion, is all-day kindergarten, class size reduction, world languages, fine arts, professional development, and, competitive salaries.
Okay, so the override money can be used to supplement pay for administrators
It-
and teachers.
The override money just goes into M&O, becomes the whole amount that we have for M&O. So yes, the override, it contributes for every,
Okay. I just think we need to be mindful that the community passed both those overrides because they want quality, administrators and teachers in the classroom. And I think we need to be mindful that that's what the community probably wants. And that's what we should be making sure we prioritize.
absolutely understand.
Thank you.
I have a few questions. Just, industry standard is for carry forward, is 6 to 8 industry standard, or is that what we said in our regulation?
We actually said, I think it's actually 4 to 8 now that I'm thinking about it.
4 to
But we
8,
said that as we looked at it. Before Prop 123 took place, there was a cap and you could only carry 4% forward. So we set that as the minimum because that's what it had been
Okay.
in the past.
But 6 is our current number and is a
We're
little
actually, we're a
fickle.
little bit higher this
Okay.
year than 6, but
Okay.
we're in that range.
And then in terms of Prop 123, what is the anticipated process for knowing how Prop 123 will continue to be funded?
Well,
And
we're
be-
paying close attention to what happens down at the state. I know that's something that's been talked about by the governor and the legislature. So with that, if there's something that can be agreed upon down there, and then it would have to go to a vote. So that is part of it, is I don't think a vote could actually happen, a vote of the community, of the state. I don't know that could happen at this point.
For
by-
continuance?
Yeah, for continuance in
Yeah.
May. So that could impact whether or not that happens for next year or not. But we're still waiting to see. There's lots of decisions still coming out of the Capitol, and so we have to wait and see what's going on there.
So I would add that from a budgeting perspective, we've been told, and I think it's reflected in the governor's budget proposals, that the state is assuming that they have to fund out of general fund the majority of the Prop 123 dollars that were previously covered by the funds from the land trust. There's a $75 million difference. There was a catch-up provision that isn't carried forward in the budget assumptions that the JLBC has identified. So what we don't know for certain, if we see it, so you see it on our budget line item, says Prop 123. If it comes forward like that and the distribution mechanism is the same, we're likely to get something less than the 1.3 or 1.4 because there's that $75 million delta. But it's not anticipated that the entire amount would be gone. The conversations that have been happening are about, there are other needs. Think about teacher compensation and other cost pressures that school districts are experiencing, that if we went back to the voters to extend Prop 123 and the money that comes from the state land trust, that would be what could be considered. I think Shannon's right. We, I think, missed the window for a May election, so that would mean if the legislature decides to put it on a future ballot, it's August or November. But there's a portion of the money that we've been told is carried forward in the state's budget assumptions for next year based on the outcome of the court case that led to Prop 123.
Thank you. As we look at our, how long have we been self-insured, if you know?
Early 2000s.
Okay. And who are we with?
Right now, we are with Kairos is our medical administrator.
Okay.
We've done an RFP, and we've reached out to some other trust providers to see what we could do differently.
Good. And my last question is, from a federal, national perspective, we don't often talk about the gentle diminishing of funds that have occurred over the years, somewhere between 6% and 8%, if I'm right. Is that still happening also? Is that the same threat relative to state funding and then the chunk that it would be added on to our overall budget?
With regards to federal funding, we do see declines happening within that. And of course, there's a lot of questions happening today with it that we don't have answers for. Some of that is driven off of, our census and what that looks like and with what we have within our students. So we do see a reduction happening within federal funds. I know that's always an impact for our grants is when we say, let's give a 1% or 2% raise in M&O, that impacts all of our funds. And so grants then get wrapped into, okay, what do we cut now to be able, because if their dollars are going down or they're the same, looking at, in our cash accounts, food services encounters it, community ed encounters it.
IDEA.
Yeah, IDEA, Title I, they all have to
Head
then
Start.
start going, okay, where can we cut back to be able to meet that raise or whatever we're providing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
One more, sorry.
Dr. Potensky?
Can we go to slide 4? And I apologize if I'm not tracking something that's sort of obvious. The 499 is the weighted student count, right? That's not a
Yes.
dollar number.
That's the weighted student count.
Okay. So what does that translate in terms of dollars? So how much do we have less available to us because we've lost the weighted number of 499?
I would like to email that number to you instead of coming. It's usually around it's a couple million. It's significant, but I don't want to throw a number out because I
It's not a simple, 499 times 10,000, 15,000, 12,000, 8,000.
Well, I mean, because that 499 means that we've gotten more ADM somewhere along. So is it in
Okay.
first grade? Is it in high school? Is it?
But order of magnitude, 3 to 5 million.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. I think when we calculated last year, if we stayed flat and didn't lose any students, it was enough to cover the 3 million that would be near, almost 3 million that's needed for a 2% raise.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah.
This will be very helpful for us as we work on our priorities. We really appreciate the work you've done and
Absolutely.
look forward to continue to learn with you and from you on this process. All right, thank you. That brings us now to item 4C, a discussion on the developing elements and agenda and possible dates for a governing board retreat.
I'm happy to kick off since I was one of the folks who suggested it last time. I would love for us to have a retreat. We're a new board. It's a new opportunity for us to come together, I think, to talk about, at the board level, our shared priorities. For example, what we just talked about in terms of the critical role that student enrollments play in our financial health and future as a district, and understanding better kind of the trends around that. I think it's an important opportunity for us to build trust with each other as a new board. Many of us are meeting each other for the first time, or some of us, and also to build trust with leadership and the superintendent. And then last but not least, I think it's an opportunity for us to just talk about how we want to operate as a board. So I would love to see us come together. I think it should be an agenda that is shaped by the board in terms of our priorities. So hopefully that's what we'll have a chance to talk about now, is what do we want to come out of it, as opposed to something that's kind of programmed or formulaic in terms of board retreats, because I think we're kind of a unique situation. And I would encourage us to have an opportunity for the board to meet on its own as part of that agenda, as well as an opportunity to meet with leadership so we can facilitate both levels of those conversations.
All right, we'll just continue.
Sure. I'll add to that, very much in support. For me, communication is key, and that we're new and haven't worked together as a group. This specter of open meeting law is very interesting, and like what we can and can't say, and I don't want that to be the guiding factor of like, oh, I can't say that because of I risk and fear of that. I believe and know we can get to a point where we have a good level of communication without pushing up against that. I don't want that to be a thing, and so would love it if we could find good norms as a group for communication. That's really important for me.
Ms. Carney? Ms.
Thank you, President Lewis. I too am in support of a governing board working retreat, special meeting. I'd like to hear, President Lewis, from you, as I know you and Dr. Menzel have met with Sarah James at ASBA and started an outline, which we have not received. So I'd like for you to start there, maybe, of what you've developed already, and then we can go from there.
Excellent. Ms. Carney, anything you want to add? Ms. Warner, do you want to add anything?
Well, I'll probably add once I
Okay.
hear what
Sure.
you've started and see if, oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'd like to hear your.
yeah.
Okay, sure. So Dr. Menzel and I did meet with a new director from the Arizona School Boards Association. We went to the meeting you had 10 months ago and said, this is what was discussed, this is what seemed to go well, this is what seemed to be in question. We think this is exactly the time to get to know each other, to begin trends for trust with one another and get to know each other since we're new to one another. We did talk about making some space for the board to work on communication goals or elements of how we want to work together in terms of potentially learning even how to disagree. Norms did come up. I'm trying to think, Dr. Menzel, what else you might remember from that conversation?
So some of I think you've covered the big points, but in broad chunks, it's being clear about what your why is as board members to serve on the board, and then thinking about how that why translates into our how, creating consensus as a leadership team to move the agenda forward for Scottsdale Unified School District, and then governing board norms, and that would get to communication protocols and the kinds of things in terms of how we're going to conduct our business to serve the students of this community. So it was that broad level kind of conversation. And we actually did discuss with Sarah that should the board want to move forward with the retreat, we would want her to talk with each of the board members to identify what your thoughts were about how that would be structured. But we didn't want to be presumptive before having this conversation.
Go ahead.
Okay, so
Yes.
have we already selected Sarah James as a facilitator, or where did she come into this?
Well, I think where we landed on that one was wanting to kind of move forward from the past and yet count on the expertise of ASBA. So she was recommended through that organization.
Okay, are we open to other recommendations?
I would say we are.
Okay, so how would we submit recommendations for facilitators?
Right now is a great time to talk about it, unless you want to take more time.
No, I just think there's other options that we should look into, because I know we paid last time for the facilitator, so how much would she cost?
I don't know.
The estimate was about $500.
Okay, because last retreat we paid $1,200, so you're saying she would only be $500. I also know that last year Steve Watson, Maricopa County Superintendent, had said that he could, facilitate board retreat, and I don't think there was a cost or much at all, so I'm not sure if Shelley Boggs, who is the new superintendent, it could be an option. I'm not sure if her office is doing it or not, but I think we should look into something that is maybe a little more neutral than ASBA.
I'll add, I have no affinity for ASBA, and I haven't been involved in anything. I don't feel if there's any, baggage with it. I don't need it. I was thinking possibly a former board member from back, someone who's been here that we agree on. I don't have anyone in mind. I'm just thinking someone we would know and has seen this, I bet somebody would volunteer and be happy to do it because they've been in this seat. That's something I feel might be good, and I'd be happy to ask around and see if anybody would do it, but just throw them on the table.
So I'd actually like to echo what Board Member Patinsky said, and we actually met over coffee, and what he was really looking for was an opportunity for the five of us to be able to get together and talk, which Amy and Board Member Carney and I did do that individually with board members when we got on the board, because we opted to get sworn in late so that we could all meet without any open meeting violations. And that was taken from you guys when you opted to get sworn in early, because that would have been an opportunity for us to have the conversations that you shared with me. So I will also support what Board Member Patinsky said. I think that there's an opportunity to be had with the five of us being able to have a meeting to really have these conversations. And obviously we'd be following open meeting law, but there's value there. So thank you.
Any advice or issues with not meeting with our CEO?
Well, to clarify, I think both.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we be able to do both, but I absolutely think it's important that we have an opportunity to meet as a board directly, in addition to the opportunity to include the superintendent. I think it's partly topic specific.
And I would add, just a reminder that it would be a public meeting. So, I'm not sure, we'd say you guys can't come. It's not an executive session, just to be mindful of that. So we could be at the table in terms of discussion and have parts of it where it's inclusive and partnering, and a part of the conversation where it's the five of us sharing values and communication expectations or hopes of one another, and ask that it just be the five of us comment in those different phases. Does that work as a golden mean?
So I would, again, echo what Board Member Patinsky said. It would be 2 meetings. Obviously, both meetings would follow open meeting law, as I stated before. And when it comes to somebody being a facilitator, it does need to be somebody who's achieved success in this arena before, not a one-time board member or somebody who just may have been in education for a long time, but really somebody who's achieved what we want to achieve.
So we want to look for a masterful facilitator that would bring out from us what we want with one another.
I think that's a distinct skill set.
Yeah.
And but also someone who has experience with education, understands open meeting laws, keeps us on the right side. So understands the education context, but also has a track record facilitating.
So several ideas and names have been brought up. A former board member, Steve Watson, Shelley Boggs, Sarah, what was her last name? I'm sorry. James, Sarah James from ASBA. Other ideas?
Mike's idea of kind of looking back at past board members who may have served during high-performing times and, has the trust of this board.
Okay. So how would you like that decision to be made?
We could suggest names by email.
Suggest names by email?
Yeah, we can send it to Gladys.
And then if there's 7 different names, how would you like that decision to be made?
One thing I'm concerned about too is where would the funds come from to pay a facilitator? Isn't that out of M&O?
I think there's probably, I don't know, I think there's a budget for board development.
Right, so I think we'd be very mindful of the funds that we're spending. I'd prefer to, I think that should be a priority, is paying attention to not spending much on a facilitator if possible.
Okay. So low costs or no costs?
I think that's wise with what we're facing right now. I also know there's a local gentleman who's done some work with the district. His name is Lee Jenkins. He's a former superintendent, and also, I believe, may facilitate retreats as well.
I know that name.
So with open meeting laws, we decided we are not deciding to have the retreat. We don't have to actually vote to have a retreat. Are we allowed to decide on a facilitator asynchronously through email or like a Survey Monkey, or that has to happen in a live board meeting?
I think the board took the option to take legal action off the table by its last move. So, yes, you cannot decide together to vote for anything since you're just having discussion.
Let me ask it a different way. Do we have to decide the facilitator as an agendized topic
No.
at a board meeting, or we can just
No,
do it?
you do not.
Okay.
Well, so to be clear, the answer is if the board is going to decide collectively, you do. If you're going to delegate that authority so that you've identified the parameters and you want that decision to be made, Donna and I can, because we set the agenda for meetings, we could finalize that based on reviewing the people that you've had, ask what their costs are, ask them for a proposal. But any action by the board would have to be at a public setting. You can't send out a survey and say, hey, how do you feel about these? Because that's a vote, that would violate OML.
That's correct. But you could still set one and then have the meeting without a board action.
So where does your confidence lie?
I would want to make sure that we make a decision as a board, because I think there's opinions, and that's great, and I would hate to get off on the wrong foot by picking a facilitator that one person didn't agree with. So I think that's something we should decide.
Agendize.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will agendize this topic for action, bringing forward names, an agenda, and a date, and then we will act. Does that make sense? I'm just proposing that for a future agenda item as a caveat.
Yeah, I don't think the agenda or the date has to be approved because that's
We
part
have
of
that
those policies. I think it's the
BED.
facilitator that we would need to vote on.
All right, then we will, once we get to future agenda, or we will just make sure that we put that on the future agenda to vote on the facilitator. Okay?
Great. And I've got just a last comment. If we're talking about what we would like to see on an agenda, I do think the governing board needs to decide our key priorities and goals for these next 2 years and beyond. And then I would like to see governing board operating principles and norms, which would include the communication piece as well. And I really think that our working retreat should be really based on solutions to the issues that we heard tonight. From our administrators, the head of our employee groups, and that we're beginning to hear from teachers right now on site. So I really think, we need to be very productive with our time, looking for solutions to these problems that we do have.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah, when we
all.
talk about sort of finding our why, like, I believe in that as a TED Talk, but as a, retreat function, I think why at the level of what do we think the critical issues we're looking for as a board to be able to address and move the needle on. So I would echo what Ms. Carney described.
All right. We will get, Dr. Menzel, can you get an update on some of the names that have been mentioned, and then let us know who you've reached out to and their gist of their offers?
I can do that. My only other concern is that, given our next meeting is February 11th, we will not be able to schedule something before then, so that puts this back out into either late February or March before this would be possible.
And I think that's fine. We're all good with that, right? Okay. Good non-action discussion. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating so thoroughly in it. All right, we are now moving on to action items. Number 5A, the selection of a delegate and alternate to the Arizona School Boards Association Delegate Assembly. I know, Amy, you were in that role last year, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and can you share anything about the role that would help anybody say, I want to
Well,
do that?
what would be nice is if whoever is our next delegate would be provided expectations of the role, because I wasn't provided that, and that would be helpful going into it. I just tried to attend whatever events I could or conferences, and then bring back that information. I think it's pretty simple,
Okay.
but probably meaningful.
Well, if no one's interested, I am interested in that role, and I am comfortable with some of the ambiguity of it, but I would be willing to clarify the way in which a delegate liaisons between a district and the state association.
I nominate Donna Lewis for as the delegate.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. We need an alternate. Don't get up too fast. Okay,
Now you know
then
why I
guess
was so quick to nominate you.
Yeah, I'll promise to go to everything. How's that? And then and then I'll pick on somebody on the side. Are you cool with the casual alternate? Are we good with that? Okay. Clear? Ready to move? All right. You okay with that? Is that okay, Gladys, with you? Okay, I thought I was getting a little look. All right. 5B, appointment of 2 board members to serve on the Joint Advisory Committee on Education. Now, this is through the city of Scottsdale. Can you speak to it a little bit?
It's an agreement that was established a number of years ago that included members from the city council and the mayor, representatives from Scottsdale Community College and Scottsdale Unified School District. Well, we don't know whether or not the city council and mayor will want to continue this committee. Mayor Borowski did indicate at a meeting I was at that she's interested in that. And I thought in order to be prepared, should that committee go forward, if we identify the 2 people who would serve from the school district, that would be great. If the city decides to discontinue the committee, then there would be no work.
Well, not for that reason, in the hope that it actually does happen. I am interested in serving. I'm very interested in dual enrollment, CTE, a lot of the intersections between the district and the community college. So if this is a context where we can do that, I would be happy to serve.
Thank you. Others who are interested?
I will nominate Board Member Carney for the 2nd spot on the Joint Education Committee.
Are you interested?
Okay, I accept.
Okay, look at the enthusiasm.
I have served, my first term, I did serve on this committee, and so.
Oh, good.
I'm familiar with it, and.
Okay, great.
I motion to approve Board Member Carney and Board Member Patinsky to serve on the Joint Education Committee with City of Scottsdale.
Second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Approval of, we're on 5C. Approval of selection of audit committee member. And I'm trying to think, Karen, did you serve on that one recently? All right, you want to share a little bit about it? Do you mind?
So the audit committee is, it's actually a pretty interesting committee to serve on. The agenda has kind of been set for the next several audits that will be completed. However, when things come up, we can always bring forward another audit, and you get a really complete look behind the scenes of what is happening with regards to, we did an HR audit, which was very detailed. It was very telling to problem areas and areas of strength, and so I found it fascinating to be on there and would highly recommend it.
Is anybody on the board interested?
Can I ask what the time commitment is like?
It's once a quarter-ish. It's not a lot of time at all, about an hour-and-a-half meeting.
I'd be happy to do it if it's agreed upon.
I nominate Vice President Sharkey to serve on the audit committee as the board representative.
I'll
Great
second that.
opportunity. Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mike. We are on 5D, approval of governing board member as self-insurance trustee. Who served on that in the past?
I did, and I will not be returning to serve again on the trust committee.
All right. So we need somebody interested in self-insurance. And it will be
Can I
a
ask
topic.
what that involves, and again,
Do
time
you-
commitment and
Yeah.
information?
It's not a lot of time commitment, actually. You'd be a great fit because it's all the data with the numbers of the budget and so on. It's good. I think you'd be really great at it.
You willing?
Yeah.
Can I say one thing about that? Is that the meeting that starts at 4 PM though? It is start at an earlier time, just.
How
be aware.
frequently?
The Self-Insurance Trust Board meets quarterly, generally on a Thursday at 4. It's made up of 3 community members, myself, and a board member. We have asked about moving that a little bit earlier, but because of pickups and work commitments, we've struggled to move it earlier than 4. But it's usually from 4 to maybe it's just a little after 5, a Thursday every quarter.
I'd be happy to represent.
I motion to approve Board Member Sharkey for the Self-Insurance Trust Committee.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Vice President Sharkey, for your willingness to step on a couple of these tasks. All right, that moves us to item 5E. Item 5E was me. I put it on the agenda, a little bit like a zealot that I am, excited about the growth potential for the board, and I am a big believer in staying up to date on national trends, and I am a big believer in modeling the need for being learners. I know there are concerns relative to our priorities and time and space and money, and I don't know what the right golden mean is for that, if we can't all go and we don't all see the value in it yet, or if we're developmentally not there as a board and we want to start at a different baseline. But I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve attendance to the National School Board Association Conference for those board members who are interested in attending.
I think we need to have a discussion first.
Okay? Or do we second the motion and then have the discussion? It can go either way in my experience.
Discussion?
So you want to just go straight to discussion?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll just put in my opinion. My only involvement with ASBA,
This is national, NSBA.
the School Board Association has
Yeah.
been the orientation that I attended as a new board member, which was fine. I just don't think it's high enough value for the investment. I mean, the dollars, I appreciate having the dollars here, and it's, not going to break the bank, but still every dollar helps. And as far as the value we're getting, I just think with our priorities, I don't think it's something that we want to invest in. I think there's enough experience here, we can kind of attack our problems. So I think while there is potential value, in general, I don't think it's something we should shoot for.
Okay. Others?
I just had a few questions for you
Sure.
on it.
Yeah.
Who would we be approving this for? Because it's very general, and so it
Yeah.
could be 20 people, and
So
It
in
doesn't
my
say-
experience, the assumption has been the board and the superintendent, so 6 people being invited.
okay. So have you, when you were superintendent of Creighton, did you attend this with your board? Is that how you
Yes.
know about this?
Yes,
And how many times did you attend?
almost every year,
Okay.
yeah.
You guys, because I was looking at this, and I just agree with Vice President Sharkey. It looks like it would be about 14,310 at least for 6 people. Have we budgeted for funds for participation in this conference?
Board Member Carney, we have budget for the governing board to attend professional development. The budget within that was not set for, multiple individuals to attend. So we'd have to move some money around to do, if everybody were to go. If, 1 or 2, there's probably enough in the budget to be able to cover that. But we do have dollars set aside for professional development for the governing board.
Okay, thank you. I think I'd just like to state that the district, we've already paid ASBA nearly $8,000 for board members, the superintendent and employees to attend the law conference in September, and then you all went to the new board conference and the annual conference in December. And then I saw Board President Lewis, you're attending the upcoming
Bolts.
board
Bolts,
operations and
yeah.
leadership training seminar. So I think we're getting good training and support here locally in Arizona. So I would say that no to, that I am not for approving this.
So I do believe that we need to be focusing our resources to our staff. Considering what we just heard from Ms. Crozier, it's absolutely vital that we save every penny we can so that we can take care of the people that are taking care of our kids every day. So I would be a no.
Well, at this point, this feels like piling on, but I also think, I see the value. I really do. There are national issues around FERPA, around school safety, around federal policy that I'm not sure we'd get quite the same access through Arizona. At the same time, I think particularly in this financial environment and in the first year of this newly constituted board, I don't think this is the best use of our funds, so I also would vote no.
Well, first of all, I really respect each and every one of your separate and individual opinions, and as aligned as they are, I'm going to align with each of you. So I withdraw the motion and respectfully hope that one day we will build our capacity to think like the global school district we intend to be and are, that we will model leadership through the professional development that was brought up through our leadership association, that was still something they wanted to hold high as a priority, and we want to put our money there for them. But I also hope we'll invest in it too, because the pillars of strength we each bring also could use some finessing. And I know we're going to get there just by working better together. So I will withdraw the motion, and thank you all for your comments, and I align with you. That brings us now to item F, 5F. We are on the second read and approval. We had a presentation at the last governing board meeting, so unless there are any questions, I'll call for a motion to approve Board Policy IL regarding the evaluation of instructional programs. Do I have it? I'll just make the motion to approve Policy IL, which was revised based on the statutory shifts from our policy governance team. We need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, passes 5-0. Item 5G, ratify the approval of purchase of fuel tank removal and ground remediation for fuel tank leak at the district warehouse using the State of Arizona cooperative contract. Do we have a description of what we're talking about besides what's in writing? Do we want to?
Yes, President Lewis, we have an annual inspection that happens every year on our fuel tanks. We have 3 sites that have fuel tanks. During that inspection this fall, it was noted that a sensor was having issues. So we got the information on that, worked with the inspector, worked with the state on fixing that issue. When they came back out to again inspect it, there's like a probe that goes underneath the gas tank to check on that sensor. And at that point, they realized that when they pulled that probe back out, it had fuel on it, which means that something is leaking. We don't know if it is the tank. We don't know if it is a fuel line. We won't know that until the tank is removed. At this point, the fuel from that tank has been removed and moved to, thankfully, we were able to salvage it and move it to our other 2 locations, so we could save that part of it. We are waiting, the company has to work with AZDEQ, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, to get permits and get what's necessary to then go in and remove that tank. Once the tank is removed, then we'll know, what the impact of it, if it was a small leak or something different. We don't think it's passed inspection in the past, so, but we just won't know what that looks like until that tank is removed. We are waiting to get permits back on getting that out. Because the fuel is out, that would stop the leak. But the tank does have to come out. And so we're just at this point waiting to get those permits and get that scheduled to have them come out and remove that tank. We have decided we don't need that fuel tank anymore. There's a location just down the street, not that far away, that you can fuel up. And so we have decided that we are going to just close that, remove the tank, and seal it up so there will no longer be fuel at that location. But we felt it necessary as soon as we knew what the situation was and what needed to be done, that we needed to move forward with getting the fuel out and getting the permits necessary to remedy the situation. So we did move forward with that purchase order, even though it was over the $100,000 because of the nature of the situation for it.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to ratify the approval, or are there any questions?
I make a motion to approve item 5G
As proposed.
as proposed.
Seconded.
All right, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And that was a 5-0. Thank you. We are now on H, 5H, the approval of the Cheyenne Traditional School Grade 3 Math Curriculum. And who will be presenting that
Do
today?
we have questions first? Because we were going to see if we weren't going to do the presentation unless they wanted the presentation.
Do you guys have any questions about it? All right, do I have a motion then?
I motion to approve the Cheyenne Traditional School Grade 3 Math Curriculum as presented.
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it passes 5-0. Thank you. And now we are on to the second read and approval of the middle school planning guide.
If there are questions, Dr. Sakos and Dr. Dodds-Karen are here to answer those questions.
Dr. Potensky.
Well, I had raised last time we met about honors and sort of the clarity of the guide as relates to honors and the honors offerings. Since then, I know we've heard from members of the Desert Canyon community out of concerns about potential changes in their honors offerings. So I'd love to just get an update on what, if any, changes are happening at Desert Canyon. I think that's within the agendized, coincidentally or luckily.
Come on up, Dr. Dodds. Simply put, we were able to remedy that today. A letter did go out to the Desert Canyon Middle School community, letting them know that we will have honors in all the core content areas.
Great, thank you.
Good clarification.
And just any additional reflections on the broader conversation, how do parents in elementary school understand kind of what the placement methods are or criteria are, what their rights are to appeal, kind of the expectations in parent-teacher conferences to give families a sense of how they're trending, just the broader conversation that we had last month. I'm curious if that's prompted any reflection on practice.
Sure, thank you for that question. In this particular situation, it had to do with staffing.
I'm speaking generally, not about that.
Oh, generally.
This is a new topic.
Oh,
yes.
a new topic.
Well, not a new topic, it's last month's topic or last meeting's
We're fighting
topic.
for the mic over here. Go ahead.
See if I can work it too. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yes, absolutely. The conversation continues based on what you brought up last month. I think there's some clear guidance around our gifted students. It's all of our other students and looking at their opportunities. And so I think as we reflect on our practices this spring, especially with our 5th grade families, there's a great opportunity to connect with elementary leaders and start to have even more of those conversations. We've talked about and thought through in elementary, we have a middle school planning guide, we have a high school planning guide. We don't have as much support in terms of educating beyond elementary. And those often are our families who don't know what middle school is like and what high school is like. And so we certainly have opened the conversation about what is the best way, not only to communicate that for compliance purposes, but also build practices throughout our system where we are having those conversations. We're starting them in 4th grade and in 5th grade. And parents do really know what are the options, the ins and the outs. And there is no one time you are able to be in and never again is the conversation broached. And so it's really spurred the opportunity for us to really revisit some of those practices, consider around how are we educating elementary families on those transitional moments. And so it is work that continues. It didn't prompt any additional modifications of the middle school planning guide, but it certainly has been on our minds, in our mouths, in a way in which we're rethinking, how do we have those conversations? Because when I was a parent of just a 10-year-old, I didn't realize how important Algebra 1 was going to be and how critical I could be as a parent in helping to guide those decisions. And so from all of our experiences, I think we bring together an opportunity to elevate excellence in that specific space. So it's a continuing conversation that we will bring back and have some more conversations with leaders this spring about. But appreciated you bringing up the point. It did not change or adjust anything in the planning guide for this evening.
Thank you. It's just helpful to hear you reflect back the concerns so fully and completely, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, President Lewis. I'm not sure, I don't see that the board was forwarded that email communication that went out to the Desert Canyon community. If we could see that communication, that would probably be helpful for us as well. Thank you.
All right. Are we ready for a motion? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, come on, people. All right, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the second read and approval of the middle school planning guide.
But thank you for not roll calling every vote this time. We appreciate that.
Yep, I learned. I got feedback.
I'll second.
Thank you.
If you motioned, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone. We are now on our final action item, I believe, approval of the governing, oh, no, we don't have it anymore, because we moved it.
We're going to vote to go into executive session.
All right.
So we should read that whole item 6A.
Okay. So at this time, the governing board's going to move into executive session, and we're going to choose to stay in this room. So pursuant to ARS 38-431.038, the governing board may vote to convene an executive session for discussion or consideration of matters relating to school safety operations or school safety plans or programs regarding the 2024 school safety audit by the Arizona Auditor General. So I'm going to gavel at this time. We need a motion to adjourn?
No, motion to go into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session.
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And can we take a 5-minute recess?
We can do that, and remind people, there is no action item after this except for adjournment.
All right, so a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.